This is the NFL Draft Report on 101 ESPN, featuring Tony Softli and Howard Balzer.
I'm Howard Balzer, and with me is Tony Softli as we continue our draft previews here on 101ESPN.com. And even though, Tony, the Rams are not looking for a quarterback this year, quarterbacks are always the position that a lot of people like to focus on. And last year, I think it's fair to say it was pretty clear that Sam Bradford, once everyone knew he was healthy, was the best quarterback in the draft. Do we know yet who really is the best quarterback in this year's draft? Is this one of the years where it's difficult to separate a lot of the tough guys?
Well, you know, you got Blaine Gabbert, who's up at the top, along with Cam Newton, and both those guys are coming out of the spread. So, you know, everybody looks at that offense as like, oh, no, how is that going to transcend to the National Football League? And then you got Jake Locker. You know, he's got some issues with accuracy, but, you know, actually he's a pretty good football player, and he blew everybody away at the Combine in his interview process, knowing about football, explaining things on the board, regurgitating information. So, you know, he's a guy that is really starting to creep up in a lot of people's minds, even though he's going to need a little time. And Ryan Mallett had some off-the-field issues, but you know what? He answered those questions at the Combine with the teams. The teams are feeling pretty good about the situation. He has the smoothest stroke of all these quarterbacks in this draft. So really, you know what, separating these guys, it's just a matter of what you like, what kind of flavor. It's like Baskin-Robbins. What kind of flavor ice cream do you want?
What's really interesting is when we look at these quarterbacks, last year at this time, we didn't even know some of these guys would even be in the draft, obviously. We knew about Locker, and he was the favorite going into the college season to be the #1 guy. Struggled, team wasn't very good. He threw the ball away a lot to get rid of it, and that affected his completion percentage. And all of a sudden, in the minds of people at least, he started slipping. You have a Gabbert, comes out early. Cam Newton, who knew about him last year? And of course, Ryan Mallett with his great physical ability. So in a lot of the evaluations, even though you evaluate guys the same when they come into the draft, quote, late, as early out guys, as you call them, you still are kind of catching up a little bit in your evaluation because you're not really watching them that closely during the season.
Well, you know what? I developed a futures book, and a lot of scouts do this, a lot of personnel guys, and you start tracking guys when you see that athleticism, and they start out as freshmen and really have really good production, and then you start tracking them every year, knowing that there's a good chance that they might come out as a junior. You don't get to know them because you can't talk to them because they're underclassmen, but there's a good chance that those guys are going to come out, so you have a good idea of who those guys are, what they can do physically, and what their ability is on the field, and then you just have to get to know them as people, and that's the process that everybody's going through, all 32 teams. Who are they? What's their personality like? Do they have any character issues? And so forth.
Obviously, you don't know what's going to happen as a first round develops, and all four might not go in the first round, including Locker and Mallett in there. But would you, as an evaluator, put a first round grade on each of those guys?
Oh, there's no question. All four of those guys have first-round ability. I think all four will go in the first round. If Mallett might be the only one to slip out of the bottom of the first round, but I really believe, you know, when you look at his film, you look at his body of work, you see what he's done in a Bobby Petrino offense, which is really pro-ready right now, the closest pro-ready offense of all these guys coming out in this draft. I think he still stays in the first round. You know, regardless of the off-the-field stuff that was rumored, I think he's a first-round talent. There's no doubt about it.
That's Tony Softli. I'm Howard Balzer. Keep it right here. Read us both, watch us both, and listen to us on 101 ESPN and 101ESPN.com.